Right now, what is the state of our union? In about 3 hours' time, the president's going to answer that question coming off one of the worst, if not the worst, years of his presidency. Can he restore confidence in the government to a very skeptical public? We have team coverage of the president's address, and our Andrew Whitman, he is in Washington tonight getting a reaction from Democrats and Republicans on the ground. And our political roundtable will preview what the president's going to lay out tonight and give their takes on if he goes too far or not far enough. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thanks so much for joining us this Tuesday evening, January 28th. Now, it's far cry from this time last year. President Obama, he was coming off a decisive re-election victory and promising a bold agenda that he would achieve with bipartisan cooperation from Congress. Yeah, right. Well, tonight, the president, he will outline familiar goals in the State of the Union address, expanding opportunity for Americans he says have been left behind. He'll also signal that he's willing to do it without Congress if he has to. President Obama has said that this year he's going to get something done, even if he does it on his own.
Mindful of Congress's reluctance to be cooperative at times, the president is going to exercise his authority.
The president will announce in tonight's State of the Union an executive order to increase in the minimum wage for the new federal contract workers to $10.10 an hour. The White House hopes that this will put pressure on Congress to raise the minimum wage for all workers. But House Speaker John Boehner already dismissed the president's action, saying it will have minimal effect. He also told reporters if the president ignores Congress, he's going to run into a brick wall.
We're going to watch very closely because there's a Constitution that we all take an oath to, including him.
Look for President Obama to emphasize opportunity tonight, expanding prosperity for the middle class, extending benefits for the long-term unemployed. Now, these are not new ideas, but the president has a very tough sell. His approval rating is just 46%, and just 37% of Americans say they have confidence that he'll make the right decisions for the nation.
The biggest thing he can do tonight is, one, identify how he's going to restore faith and trust in the government in Washington. Now, the president's promised this will be a year of action, and he needs something to show results. So the question is, what do lawmakers want to hear in, as I said, just a few hours' time? And for that, we turn to our senior political correspondent who is on the ground in Washington, Andrew Whitman. Andrew?
Rich, thank you. Good evening. And some very interesting questions. We're joined now by Congressman Tim Bishop, New York's 1st District in Suffolk County. Congressman, thanks for a few minutes.
Thank you for having me on.
Let's start with the question that Rich just asked. What do you want to hear President Obama say tonight in the State of the Union?
Well, I'd like to hear him talk about programs that are going to help create jobs in this country. I think that remains the #1 priority for really every level of government. We've got to put this country back to work. We've made some real important strides over the last several years, but we still have a long way to go. So I hope that he talks about an investment in infrastructure. I hope he talks about addressing the income inequality problem in this country by addressing the issue of raising the minimum wage. I hope he talks about providing people with opportunities for a better life through access to education and training. But clearly, job creation has to be, I think, the focus of all of us in office right now.
You know, one of the questions that I've been hearing a lot of about tonight's speech is about taking it from talk and turning it into action. There's so much frustration out there with Washington, with the political process, with Congress in single-digit approval ratings and the president in the 40s, in part because it doesn't seem like anybody can get along. Can the president do anything to try to improve relations in Washington, short of just yielding to what it is that his critics want?
Well, I hope what he does is that he proposes programs that can appeal to the broad middle. I mean, if we continue to be as polarized as we are, we're not going to get anything done. But my own view, New York passed an increase in the minimum wage, and that's divided government. It's Republican state Senate, Democratic Assembly, Democratic governor. They passed it into law. That's the kind of model we should be emulating. Immigration reform passed out of the Senate last June on a bipartisan basis, a very strong bipartisan vote. Hopefully that's something that we can work on here in the House, and I think we need presidential leadership for that. Investment in infrastructure. For decades, the Congress almost without question understood the importance of investment in infrastructure. And not to be partisan about this, but Democrats still believe that investment in infrastructure is important. Republicans have been resisting it. So hopefully, though, if our focus is job creation, we can coalesce around some reasonable ideas that put people back to work, but also improve the country.
You know, I'm struck by how many other State of the Union nights in the last 5 years where we've heard topics like those come up as being, oh, yeah, I'd like to hear those. Yes, I think that would be a way forward. And yet it doesn't seem like any progress gets made on. How do you take it that next step? Is it by convincing your opponents that you're right, or is it by coming to a...
Here's what I hope. I hope that the members of Congress listen to the American people. 75% of the American people think we should increase the minimum wage. 70 to 75% of the American people support investments in infrastructure. 70 to 80% of the American people support investments in education and job training. So we're here to represent the people of our districts. That's what the people of our districts are telling us they think is important, and that's what they're telling us they would like to see their members of Congress work on. So I hope that we can listen to what the people we represent are telling us, and what they're telling us is they want to address income inequality, they want to put this country back to work, they want educational opportunities, and they want job creation programs like investment in infrastructure.
It would come as no surprise to mention that it's an election year, the midterms are coming up. Everybody who works here obviously has their eye on November and the midterm elections. Do the midterms serve as a catalyst to actually get things done because there's a call for it from the American people, or is it one of those deals where it's really going to keep people entrenched in their already established positions because of primary concerns and other concerns?
I fear it may be the latter. I mean, the leadership of the House of Representatives has pretty much said that they consider this year that they're not going to take up bills that are significant or perhaps controversial. I think that's deeply unfortunate. I mean, we have 10 months, 11 months till the election, and I think if all we're going to do is tread water so as to not do anything controversial, that's a disservice to the people that represented us. So I hope we set aside election year politics and we do what's right for the people that we've been elected to serve.
All right, Congressman Tim Bishop, Democrat from New York's 1st District, thanks very much. We'll see you after the speech tonight.
I hope so, yes.
All right, that is the latest from here. Rich, we'll have more in just a few minutes, but for now, let's send it back to you in the studio.
That's right. We'll be checking back with Andrew. His meeting with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle from the metropolitan region down there in D.C. But let's bring in a panel right now. Dominic Carter, of course, here, and Republican strategist Bill O'Reilly. And we'll get into a lot here, guys, but let's talk about the stakes for the president tonight. Because honestly, I can't remember a more less anticipated State of the Union, you know? And you could do that for one of two ways. There's no huge event that's going on at the moment, whether it's war or whatever else, but also people just have this resignation that he's not going to be able to get a lot done. Do I read the mood right? I mean, are you with me?
Your interpretation of the mood is 100% on, because unfortunately, I just watched Congressman Bishop make a statement, and he better get ready for a year of not being happy, because he said if the year goes by and not much is done, it'll be a year disservice. Well, Congressman, get ready, because your assessment is correct. It's not looking good right now. The president does have executive order, which we'll talk about extensively during this hour. But if he's hoping for some type of bipartisan support, I just don't see it happening in an election year.
And to that end, Bill, he's making a calculation that, yes, what he might do might tick off Republicans, but he's also saying, when I play nice, it doesn't get me anything anyway. There's a risk, but also potential reward. His numbers are down from last year. Right. Congress's are even worse, but he's in basically where George Bush was in the first year of his second term. He's going to take some executive orders here to at least prove that they can do something. It does carry the risk.
No, I mean, he doesn't even get support from Democrats in the House. I mean, he's really been a very disengaged president vis-a-vis Congress. But I think what he needs to do tonight, and this reminds me of Bill Clinton 20 years ago, is prove that he's still relevant in Washington. That's an extraordinary thing. And you say that this is not an unanticipated State of the Union. I forgot that it was happening tonight. I work in this field, and I forgot that the State of the Union was occurring. I mean, that's how little look forward to this one is. Executive orders.
Basically, what it works is there's only certain things, limited things, and we should also say, for as much as people are going to come out tonight, and we're going to bring you the president's address in its entirety, of course, and then you'll get the Republican rebuttal thereafter. We'll broadcast that live for you. But Reagan did more at this time than this president did. Bush also in the second. You know, this is not like he's going to, you know, some secret strategy that's never been used. But do you think, if you're the president, would you counsel him to do this, or does he risk here being perceived as somebody that's overplaying his hand? I
think the latter. I think he risks overplaying his hand. I mean, President Obama is now infamous for blaming other people for his failures or for things not happening. And once again tonight, he's going to be blaming the Congress for things not getting done. But he hasn't worked well even with the Democrats in the Senate. I mean, he passed budgets where they completely rejected his budgets. He's not been a hands-on president. And again, he's going to be blaming.
But at least he'll be able to point to something and say, I got something done. And in this town, in this climate, in this election year, that's basically what many people agree you almost have to do to get anything done. Would you do it if you were him? Would you counsel him to go for it?
He really has no choice. Bill is correct in his assessment in terms of Richard. If he's not successful at his initiative of trying to get things done, then he's done, because then he looks like a lame duck. And Bill's right, you know, like Bill Clinton, prove to us, Mr. President, that you're still relevant. And that's exactly what Mr. Clinton did. But to your question, he does have to do something. Let's face it, the Democrats are fighting to hold on to the Senate.
Yep.
They're trying to gain ground in the Congress. It's looking unlikely, but you never know. One incident could change the dynamics or groundswell. But they have to have something to run on. And so they turn to the White House. And so right now you have some Democrats across the country in battleground seats where they don't want him to come in. So the White House and campaign for them.
And
so
Harry Reid said today that for those vulnerable Democratic senators, and there's more than a few that are up this year, he says he's asking the president to go campaign in every state. Real or not, that came out today from the Democrats. It's going to be fascinating, but I think there's two strategies at play. We're going to see that over the next hour and certainly over the next year. There's a belief that Republicans, with Obamacare and its favorability or lack thereof right now, they're going to campaign on that thing to the hilt. And if they can get out of their own way, they might take back the Senate and hold the House. Democrats say they've never been able to get out of their own way. They're going to overplay the hand, and they've got social issues, lower middle class and middle class voter pocketbook issues that we'll talk about in the next segment that the president polls very well on, and as a party they'll get behind. So that's really the stage that's being set for tonight. Now, when we come back, the president is expected to go by Congress, like we said, to increase the minimum wage here and some other moves. But the question is, will that do more harm than good for the president as it relates to this economy? We'll debate that one straight ahead.